Too soon? I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but I wanted to get this video commentary out there because with the Edmonton Oilers' defeat in Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Finals, thus losing the Stanley Cup Finals for the second year in a row, it allows Vancouver Canucks fans to open the door to the possibilities. Because while it's true that the Vancouver Canucks are not really seen as a top-tier contending team in 2025 heading into the 25-2026 season, back in the 2024 season, they were pretty hot. They were the top team in the Pacific, they had an emotional series against the Oilers, and now, 1 year later, we have the opportunity to analyze what that team really was, and ask whether or not if they were actually better than we thought they were. Before we take a trip down memory lane and reminisce on one of the best Canucks seasons we've seen in a long time, we have to get into a few words first. When it comes to career changes or life changes, for the athletes we watch, or even just me or you, changes in life can lead to changes in identity. And the question we are starting to ask a little bit more is, how will this affect our mental health? This is where a therapist can come in, who will listen, ask questions, and help you see things from new perspectives. Going to therapy is a sign of strength, not weakness. And a therapist can give you advice and techniques to help make positive changes in your life. BetterHelp is the paid partner of this video, and they're on a mission to make starting therapy easier. Fill out a questionnaire and you will match with a therapist as soon as possible. Easily switch therapists anytime at no extra cost if it's not the right fit. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.3 rating on Trustpilot, BetterHelp is a platform you can trust. Click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/lego and get 10% off your first month of therapy. That's betterhelp.com/lego for 10% off your first month. Get started with BetterHelp. So, you might be wondering, where is all of this coming from? Why are we bringing up the Vancouver Canucks? What does this have to do with the Oilers? And I think a lot of these narratives have been talked about before, but when they're written out and spelt out in this way, it becomes a lot more, maybe kind of like sad for Canucks fans to acknowledge the greatness that was the 23-24 team. Let's dive into a tweet posted by Big Head Hockey a few days after the Stanley Cup Finals had concluded. Here is every series the Kris Knoblauch Edmonton Oilers have faced elimination in. The 2025 Stanley Cup Finals versus Florida, the 2024 Stanley Cup Finals versus Florida, and the 2024 second round versus Vancouver. We were one goal away from our Canucks Cup Finals, eh? And I love Big Head Hockey because they always seem to have some sort of a Vancouver, I don't want to say like bias, but there are a number of tweets I feel that they post that are more related to Vancouver than not. And they just happen to do this one too, saying that, hey, the Knoblauch Oilers only faced elimination in 3 series so far in their quest for the Cup in 2 years in a row, and the only one that wasn't Florida was against Vancouver. The reply goes out there and says this: Brock Boeser had blood clots in Game 7 against Edmonton. Thatcher Demko missed the entire playoffs, and Elias Pettersson had knee tendinitis. How good was that Vancouver team? And with that in mind, it really gets the gears turning internally. I'm starting to think, yeah, the Vancouver Canucks in 23-24 were a really good team. And just everything was clicking. We talk about the PDO bender. We talk about how everybody was getting lucky, quote unquote, with the amount of goals that were going in off of the quality of shots that they had. But ultimately, the Vancouver Canucks were an example of a team that was so overachieving compared to what all the analytics said they should have been able to achieve. And I think it provided some of the most entertaining hockey this city has ever seen. The crazy comeback in Game 1 against Edmonton, Dakota Joshua, Connor Garland. The Canucks had a 3-2 lead in the series, and then they lost. They were one goal away 1 game away from facing off against the Dallas Stars in the 3rd round. And before we continue beyond that, I'll say right here that it is true that the Vancouver Canucks were a game away, a goal away, a series win away from potentially achieving greatness, but I will also be very clear and acknowledge that, yeah, even though the Canucks lost Game 7 3-2 at home, they totally did not deserve to win it. Like, you see a 3-2 game and you're like, it was really close. They had a chance. They probably could have won. No, they couldn't. If you had watched that game 3-2, they were down for most of it, and they were getting just totally outplayed. The Oilers had the majority of the control. Artyom Silayev was letting in those long shots, and the Canucks, they tried to pull their magic, and they tried to muster up a late-game comeback one more time. The funny part is, they almost did it. Connor Garland and Phil Hronek getting goals in the last few minutes of the 3rd period, and the Canucks just totally putting the pressure on towards the end of that frame. But that's the problem, though. The Canucks didn't really do much in the 1st and 2nd periods of that game number 7, and in a way you can debate that the way the Oilers choked away their series against Florida this year was kind of the same way that Vancouver choked away their series against the Oilers last year. The Canucks, with some very brilliant comeback wins and last-second wins as well, ending up taking a 3-2 lead, but then getting totally stomped in Game 6 against Edmonton, and then just not really having much of a chance in Game 7. And the shoulda, coulda, woulda game is tough, because it is true, Thatcher Demko was not healthy. He did not play at all. Brock Boeser, not healthy. He blocked a shot in, I believe it was Game 6, Game 5, Game 6, something like that. It might have been Ekholm, somebody like that, I forgot. And then on the plane, he ended up getting those blood clots, and that was not good for his eligibility in game number 7. Elias Pettersson was already affected with his yips and tendonitis pretty much since the February mark of that year, so Pettersson was totally not as much of a factor as he should have been. JT Miller, Connor Garland, Dakota Joshua, Quinn Hughes, especially Elias Lindholm, these guys were all very productive players for the Canucks in that playoff run. But that's just kind of the magic about it, you know? I'm thinking about Edmonton and how the goaltending was inconsistent throughout both of their Stanley Cup final runs. Stuart Skinner would get shutout after shutout, but then in other series he would get lit up. I think out of all the series the Knobloch Oilers have had from last year to this year, Stu Skinner's worst performance by far was that second round series against Vancouver last season. And it's unfortunate because the Canucks, they didn't take advantage of that. They didn't test Skinner as much as they should have. That Game 7 that we talked about, where the Canucks put on all the pressure and they got 2 late goals in the third to make things interesting, they only had 17 shots in that game. So Vancouver, they were already starting to exhibit the signs of the inefficiencies of Rick Tocchet hockey in that time frame. They made it interesting, they almost got it back, but they weren't able to, and then those problems persisted throughout the course of the next season, which was made even worse with the Elias Pettersson and JT Miller feud. Everything seemed to have gone wrong for Vancouver after that, and it's so interesting because you think about how close they were to getting it done, despite all the setbacks, despite Thatcher Demko not being there, despite Brock Boeser not being there, despite Elias Pettersson metaphorically not being there. And for Dallas, I mean, they had themselves a pretty tough spot where Peter DeBoer is getting eliminated in the third round every year, it seems like. Would they have succumbed to the same fate against Vancouver in 2024? What if the Canucks were able to just wait it out a little bit more, and then they brought Brock back? I know there were already rumors floating around from last year that, if the Canucks made the third round, Thatcher Demko would have been available to play. Yeah, I have no reason to believe that would have actually been possible, just considering the fact that Demmer didn't even suit up for the Canucks at the start of the next season. They had to go with Lankinen and Shilovs. Shilovs wasn't great, Lankinen stole the show, and then everybody's like, okay, yeah, when's Demko back? Wasn't this guy supposed to be back for the third round? Last playoff run? It just didn't work out like that. And now, 1 year later, I think, after the Oilers get eliminated in their second straight Stanley Cup final, I think it's opening the door for Canucks fans to really start reminiscing on the season and the team that was in 23-24. But I digress. I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How good were the Vancouver Canucks really? And how sad is it to see all this go down? One of the main replies that we are seeing in this Canucks-Oilers discourse is that Edmonton had some of their own problems too, in terms of injuries and goaltending struggles, which is absolutely fair, and it was something that they had to overcome and inevitably make the Stanley Cup Finals with. But for Vancouver, 1 goal away, 1 game away, it's quite sad, isn't it? I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about the Vancouver Canucks and how close they were to actually achieving greatness in 2024. Were they really close, or is this just slim pickings? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.